At AECOM and holds many positions there. He is the Chief Corporate Officer and the Executive Vice President at AECOM. He is a huge supporter of EWB and oversees the Corporate Social Responsibility Group at AECOM. He is a member of the Ethics and Compliance Committee. He is a member of the Chairmanship Advisory Board, and he is the Chairman of the Enterprise Business Services Board. So, if we could all give him a warm welcome round of applause.
Thank you all very much. Pleasure to be here. Is this one on? Do you have this or no? Just this one? Okay, we'll go with this. Pleasure to be here. It's always great to come and see an EWB group. And in fact, I was saying to Kathy earlier that for the last month straight, I've been running around the globe. In the last month, I think I've been in Denver, Colorado, Washington, D.C., New York, Spain, Australia, and Saudi Arabia. And I just flew back from Saudi Arabia and flying back last night. I wanted to go to sleep and wanted to get a cup of herbal tea. And the flight attendant didn't have any decaffeinated tea. So I said, all right, fine, I'll skip it. And was just laying back trying to close my eyes. And then she was very sweet. She came back and she brought me her private stash of teas that she was carrying around. She opened it up and she had all kinds of tea in there. And I picked one out and she said, would you like another one for the next leg of the trip? And I said, no, that's okay, I don't want to take your tea. She said, no, you need this one. And it was the positive energy tea. And I got a kick out of that because it made me think of coming here. Unless you think I was kidding, this is the tea that she gave me. And it made me think of why I was excited to come and see this group. Because whenever I come to an EWB event, it's people with great energy, positive energy, people that want to give back, and people that do great things and want to do great things with their life. So I'm thrilled to be here. I'm thrilled to be part of the EWB organization. I'm also thrilled with where EWB is going. For those of you who may be new to Engineers Without Borders, hopefully you get to hear a lot over the course of this weekend. Learn a lot about the opportunities, learn a lot about ways to make your projects very successful. I'm going to talk about some of those things today. First off, a show of hands. How many students? I know there's some professionals here. Professionals? That's a pretty good group too. Rutgers students and grads? Staff? Yeah. And I am also a proud Rutgers alum. I got my MBA here at Rutgers, so another reason that's great to be back here. One of the opportunities I have when traveling the world is to get an opportunity to meet a lot of great people, and also in working with some of the nonprofits I have an opportunity to work with, you get to meet great people. As a society, I think we can all be a little bit cynical, and when we think about the youngsters today, I have some young kids as well, and young kids, and I find myself every so often saying the typical, oh, kids these days. All they want to do is play video games and watch TV and hang out. But that's not really true. There's great energy out there. This video, when I saw it, I said, I just love this because it's a great snapshot of where the minds of the future are.
Torkende og de tekniske tegningene, og Martin som velger å tegne ligger. Det er bra. Og nå får krisen ikke være vondt over. Ja, det er noe ekstra batteri da. Henrik! Kjapp deg ned, vi må ut! Kjapp deg. Dritbra! Yes, endelig!
pulled off the pictures to make it look like it actually happened. Obviously it didn't, but phenomenal. And you know what? The kids of today are really thinking that way. And to me, it's so very positive about what the future holds. So, first a few things. You know, the overlap, the title of the presentation was the merging of profession and passion. And I think it's important for all of us, you know, any one of us who get an opportunity to be in the engineering field is great because it's such a great profession to have passion about. And for me, melding that in with some of my other passions. Two of the organizations that I'm fortunate to spend a lot of my time with, EWB and AECOM, I'll talk about both a little bit more, but AECOM's purpose to create, enhance, sustain the world's built natural and social environments. And I think that's a great purpose for a company to have. And when you look at the EWB mission, supporting that community-driven development, design and implementing sustainable engineering projects, and then of course the second part of that mission, which is about providing really great opportunities and experiences and creating future leaders. So when I compare those two, there's a tremendous overlap. And it's one of the reasons that I'm very passionate about being part of both organizations. So just a little bit of background on AECOM. They're one of the conference sponsors and they give me the opportunity to be here, a big supporter of EWB. Just a little background because I think it's a window into what I spend my time doing. I'm just going to run through a couple of the projects that AECOM is currently involved with, and for the most part I'm just going to let the pictures do the talking, but this is one, World Trade Center, the new Freedom Tower downtown. That's an AECOM project, an unbelievable project for any of you who have been down there since 9/11. It's really quite a transformation. Seeing a new Freedom Tower emerging downtown has been really something. We also do projects like landscape and architecture, this one here in Midtown, Japan. The Southport Broadwater Parklands, this one's in Australia. Do a lot of really neat environmental work, a lot of neat landscape architecture, a lot of restoration work, ecological planning. This is a picture from the London Olympics. And the thing that's neat about this, we did the master planning for the London Olympics. We're actually doing the master planning and a lot of work for the Rio Olympics as well. But what makes this special is it's not just about the Olympics, but what happens after the Olympics and leaving the right legacy behind and how this is set up to go back into the community and become part of the community after the Olympics in London. The Sauter Bridge in China, the world's longest cable-stayed bridge, really quite an engineering feat. This won many awards. And another local project, the 2nd Avenue subway project in New York, which is the first new subway line in Manhattan in over 50 years. You think about the complexities of an underground subway and then think about doing it in a place like Manhattan with everything that crisscrosses the island underground already. Really amazing engineering feat. And then some really neat projects which I think resonate well with this group. A lot of work we do with AID, which is in nation building and post-conflict support for countries around the world. This one in the Ivory Coast, but also places like the Sudan, like Afghanistan, Iraq, Mali, and places like that, helping communities rebuild. So who am I? A little bit of background real quick. Undergraduate in mechanical engineering, master's in environmental engineering, and an MBA from Rutgers. Been in the engineering and construction business my whole adult life. Out of high school, started a construction company, then went into, after I got my undergraduate, which actually happened after I was out of school for a bit, I went to work for another large engineering firm. I was with them 10 years and have been with AECOM for 14 years. And I've seen probably just about every kind of engineering project there is out there. Been extremely fortunate. A father of 3, Passionate about that, passionate about the outdoors, and passionate about opportunities for giving back. Because I think we are in a very unique position with the skills that we have and the opportunity that we have to make a difference in the world. And again, when we talk about the melding and bringing together those types of skills and how we can leverage that for the betterment of the world, I think also we have a responsibility. There's no passion to be found playing small in settling for a life that is less than the one you are capable of living. And again, that goes to leveraging that passion and not settling for something else and thinking about what you can bring to the world and what change you could bring. So, let's set the context. I'm going to throw some statistics up here. Several you've probably seen or in a similar fashion. These are all water statistics, but to me it sets the foundation because water is so critical to life, it's critical to food, it's critical to everything that that communities need. So in the context and the drivers, why did you join EWB? What are the things that drive you? And for me, when I see some of these statistics, I as many times as I've seen them, I still get shocked. So 3.4 million people die each year from water-related disease. That's the city of Los Angeles. If the city of Los Angeles got sick tomorrow and the whole city died, think about the uproar that would be going on throughout the world, certainly in the States and other Western countries. It's incredible. 780 million people do not have access to clean water. That's more than 2.5 times the population of the United States. And today, and as a father, this one particularly gets me, one child dies from a water-related disease every 21 seconds. It used to be every 15 seconds, so it is getting better. But to think in this world, in this modern world we have, that a child dies every 21 seconds from some type of waterborne disease means we have a lot of work to do. So, with that in mind, it's those types of statistics, I think, that motivate a lot of us to be here and be part of EWB because we want to give back, we want to make a change. There's so many things that need to be done. Well, one of the things we need to think about is how should we do it? What's the context? And what I want to do is draw on a few of the parameters on the professional side of the business that we need to think about when we think about EWB projects. So, business challenges versus EWB projects. I'm going to start with the sales job, and you'll understand what I mean in a minute when we talk about that, versus the reality of the needs on EWB projects. Then doing versus achieving. EWB getting something done does not mean you got your job done. Sustainable outcomes and our community commitment. Quality and excellence, understanding the details, safety and security, and then finally, ethical behavior. So to start, what are you selling? What does the community need? And let me start on the professional side. One of the challenges we have with clients sometimes is that we want to sell services to our clients. That's not always what the client needs. One of the things we need to do as professionals is listen to them and understand what the real root cause is. This was, it really smacked me in the face one time. As part of my job a number of years ago, I used to go and meet clients and sit down with them and do independent surveys to get a feel for how we were doing. I went to meet one client because we got a series of survey results from this client that were not very positive. So I went and I sat down with the client. I went through our history on how we had been doing on our projects. Were we meeting our contractual requirements? Were we getting our drawings in on time and our specs? Was the project going okay? And everything from our side of the the picture, seemed like we should be getting rave reviews from the client because we were meeting all those. And after about 20 minutes with the client, he looked at me and he said, you know, you gave me what I asked for, but you didn't give me what I need. And it sounds kind of odd, but they rely on us to understand and determine what the real problem is. What do they need? That's a professional responsibility. And with EWB projects, it's, you know, we can't go and bring what we think the solution is. We need to make sure we really understand it. We understand the community's needs. And we understand what the right technical solution is. Bringing them what they need, not what we thought they wanted. This video is one of our employees, Ross Gordon, who did an EWB project, and I think this summarizes well, at least to a degree, how he felt when they got it right and they saw the response from the community.
You know, I can think of one particular, wow, that was awesome moment. When we first connected the water storage tank to the spring, it was almost midnight, and it was going to take several hours for the water storage tank to fill. So we said, let's go home, we'll go to bed, and come back the next morning. So the next morning we came back, and the big questions were, you know, did the tank fill? Is it leaking? Is everything going to work? And it was an interesting situation because the way we had constructed the setup, all the washing stations, drinking water taps, and showers were on the back side of the water storage tank. So as we came down the path towards the tank, we couldn't see anything. But as soon as we turned that corner, there in front of us were 10 women and all their children, happily scrubbing away, washing clothes, filling drinking water buckets. And the amazing part was that none of that had been there yesterday. It had been truly transformed overnight. And yet here in the morning, it was like it had been there forever, like they've always had it. You know, some people like to have ribbon cutting ceremonies, but for us, the best part of this project was seeing it fit so perfectly into the lifestyle of the community that it seemed like it had always been there. That for us was the best.
Well, it was a great example of getting it right. When you see, you know, the work that you did that transformed a community almost overnight, just a great outcome. The next one I want to talk about is doing versus achieving. Hard work's a great thing, and many times we think about, when we think about on our week or month what we did over the last year, and I'm sure all of you think about how hard you worked. And one of the things we need to be careful of is really making sure that all that hard work is leading to something, that it's really making a change. Because it's not just about the doing, but it's about the outcomes. We've got to make sure that what we're doing for a community, just like we do with a client, is really making that significant difference. So what are we trying to change in that community, and what's the real outcome? Because it's got to be about the outcomes. It's not just about the doing. It's not just about the hard work. And there's a temptation, and this happens in the business world all the time. We've got a lot of people working really hard. But if we're not getting the right outcomes, we're doing something wrong. So one of the things we need to make sure of is that we've got, you know, performance indicators. We've got check-ins along the way. And we understand what we really need to be driving and what those outcomes are supposed to be. So we're truly leading to changing people's lives and circumstances and environment. And not at the end of the day we have a series of events where people worked really hard but we didn't get those outcomes. The next one, and Kathy and I were talking about this word sustainability earlier. It means a lot of things to a lot of different people, but think about it in the context of an EWB project or any professional project. With our clients, it's not just enough to get it done and turn it over if that bridge, that power plant, that house, that building, you name it, doesn't work over a long period of time. It's got to perform consistently into the future. And you've got to be able to get those sustainable outcomes. Just like the relationships that we have, I think one of the great things about EWB projects is this is a 5-year, at minimum, 5-year relationship with a community. And because of that, we want to drive to make sure that we get those sustainable outcomes with the community. And again, how we get there is about how we approach the project. Do we truly understand it? Have we identified all the parameters? Have we approached it correctly? And are we getting those right outcomes? So it's got to be about those long-term sustainable solutions. Quality and excellence. And I certainly remember from my undergraduate, we didn't spend a lot of time talking specifically about quality. And we didn't talk and use the word excellence a lot. And I think we learned early on in the engineering professions that you need to have a level of focus and a level of detail. But in the professional world, we've got to get it right. You've got to go through a systematic way of thinking about how you approach a problem. There's got to be controls. You've got to have quality assurance, and you've got to have quality control steps along the way. You've got to have folks that are looking at what you're doing. You've got to do individual checks yourself. You've got to have somebody else checking the work. You've got to verify that your solutions are going to meet the demands. And you've got to set a certain expectation around excellence. And I would recommend for the students in the room, the earlier you get that into your way of thinking, into the paradigm of how you approach projects, the more successful you're going to be. It's interesting too, we hear from time to time, you know, some of the requirements that EWB puts on projects can seem a little onerous. But again, it goes to the need to and our commitment to quality, our commitment to sustainability, our commitment to those communities that drive that. And I can tell you that it is exactly consistent with what's going to be required in the professional world. So doing that now and building that into your EWB projects is going to benefit the projects, the communities, and you going forward. The next one, safety and security. These are two things that I actually look after at AECOM. And I can tell you that no project is worth doing in a way that winds up getting somebody hurt or putting somebody in harm's way on a project. And as somebody who has had to make that phone call after somebody was hurt or killed, you never ever want to have to do that. And there's a lot of enthusiasm, I know, that goes into projects, a lot of enthusiasm that goes into going out and using your hands and getting something done in the field, which is absolutely great. But always remember, you've got to do it in a safe way. You've got to look after yourself, you've got to look after the people you're working with, and you've got to look after the communities where you're doing those projects. And also, how you get there, how you transit back and forth to the projects. And the safety of you and the other people on the project. You always got to have that in the forefront of your mind. And as you're planning for your projects, make sure that you're thinking about that in advance as well. I think EWB has done a great job, and they continue to get better and better, but it's something that you as individuals need to have in your minds. Because again, no project is worth doing if somebody gets hurt, we put somebody in harm's way while doing it. And I can tell you this too, again, on the professional side, we have clients who demand the highest level of safety performance. And if we don't get that right, we don't work for them. And that's a good thing. that's the way it should be. But again, you know, these things are things that you should be thinking about now, and it's only going to help you in your professional career going forward. Another topic near and dear to my heart, and actually I don't think we talk about this one enough, ethical behavior. It should underpin everything we do. And nothing is worth doing if you can't do it right, if you can't do it ethically. And ethics and integrity should underpin everything. And I personally believe should underpin our thinking all the time. And it drives many of those others that I talked about. It's easy for a lot of reasons. You know, everybody knows right from wrong, and it's always easy to make the right ethical decision when it's black and it's white. But what you're going to find in the professional world is there's a lot of gray, and that's where you're going to be challenged. And really, you should always think about holding yourself to the highest absolute standard. And when in doubt, go the conservative route, always. Because as a professional, the most important thing to anyone who's a professional in the field is your reputation. And a reputation takes your whole career to build, and you can lose it literally within seconds by one bad decision. One thing you did wrong that in hindsight can be viewed as unethical or lacking integrity. So always think about, before you do something, if you're questioning something, if your gut is telling you it's not right, if it's going to seem different, if it was in the paper, or you had to tell your mother about it, or your friend about it, or a colleague about it, would you feel comfortable doing that? Think about that before you make the decision, because it's absolutely critical. Okay, a few thoughts on success quickly here before I finish up. Every task is a test. You never know which one will be the test. So work like it is. There's been several times in my career where I was given something to do, it did not seem like that big of a deal. And it turned out over time that it was a really big deal to somebody that I worked for or somebody else in the organization. And that reflected upon me, and if I did really well at that, it made a really big difference to them. Also, what I've come to know, learn in my career as well is that if you don't do a good job on something, that also might get noticed by somebody else, even if it's a very small task. And that can impact upon their view of you for the rest of your career. So with every task, take it really seriously, because it just might be the one that's the test for you. In my job, I wear a lot of different hats. And one of my mottos has always been to never say no. And to me, it's been one of the real pleasures in my career to get an opportunity to do so many things. And the reason I've had an opportunity to do that is because if somebody asks me to do something, if somebody asks me to volunteer for something, if somebody wants me to give them a hand, I never say no. And it's given me an opportunity to wear many of those hats and open so many other doors for me in my career. And again, I never knew in some of those volunteer opportunities or participating in some of those projects that it was going to open up a whole other door and also give me another hat in my closet that I could pull out at a later date and use in a different way. I think it's apropos for where we are here, but the learning never ends. When I got my undergraduate degree, I was working full-time. I worked full-time getting my undergrad. It was I was running a construction business at the time. It was a real grind. So when I got through my undergrad, I said, amen, I am never going back. I am done. I am ground down to the stone. That's it. And sure enough, a year and a half later, there I was going back for my master's because I really missed it. Then after I got my master's in engineering, I said, whew, done. Got my master's, feel good because I was working at the same time I got my master's as well. And sure enough, there I was a number of years later going back to my MBA. You know why? Because it's great. Your world keeps expanding. There's so much to learn. Learning's a great thing. It continues to make your world bigger, exposes you to so many other opportunities and so many other great people. So you can never learn too much. Keep the learning going. There's only one common key to success for any, at least the mortal men and women out there, and that's hard work. I am a believer in luck, but just like the quote says there, the harder you work, the more good luck you have. It's all about hard work. And pushing yourself into the uncomfortable zone. Everybody here probably, at least everybody I've met at EWB. In fact, one of the reasons I got involved in Engineers Without Borders is because at AECOM I had an opportunity to meet many of the great folks who work on EWB projects. And they were the brightest, hardest working, most enjoyable, what I saw as future leaders in the company and people that had great energy. And that's one of the things that got me to want to understand more about Engineers Without Borders, and eventually why I got involved and one of the reasons that AECOM is such a big supporter of it. And those people know how to push themselves into the uncomfortable zone. And I recommend in your career you continue to do that. It never gets easy, but it is extremely rewarding. It's going to give you opportunities time and time again, and it's going to force you to grow. It's kind of easy to fall back into a pattern of the everyday, but push yourself out there into the uncomfortable zone because that's when you get to grow. Know what your personal priorities are. In this fast-paced age, it's easy to get in a regular rhythm and kind of lose focus on those things that are very important to you. Know what your priorities are and make sure you work those into your professional and personal life. I know for me, part of it, a big aspect of my life has been about giving back because it's one of the things I'm passionate about. And I always constantly am trying to rearrange my life, my professional life, my family life, and in fact, one of the things my wife and I started doing with some of the projects I'm involved with from a giving back perspective is now involving the family. And so last year we took the 3 kids and we spent a week working in an orphanage in the Dominican Republic. So, ways to work it into the priorities to make sure that you're focused on those things that fill up your bucket, that get you excited to get up every day, and work those into your professional life. Again, one of the great things about the type of work we do, you have an opportunity to do that. Go to work for a company that supports that. Those things that get you excited and make you want to get up every day and be in the office or be somewhere else, go out and do those. Make sure you work those into your professional life. And last but not least, remember how fortunate we all are. It's easy with the grind of the world today to forget how good we all have it. And again, getting an opportunity to travel around the world and see the plight in many other parts of the world really makes you appreciate what we do have. And you should never, ever, take that for granted. And it makes you really appreciate, the gifts that you have and the ways you can leverage those to do great things out in the world. I'll leave you with a closing video. hope you guys have a great conference. Thanks very much for coming. Really appreciate it. It was great to be here. Go out there and be your own change. Appreciate it. And we're on time. I know everybody probably wants pizza. I'm happy to take any questions if folks have questions. Sure.
I was first going to comment about providing your client, and in this case, perhaps our local partners, with what they need, not what they ask for. How do you get to that without sounding patronizing, without being the person who tells them
Yeah.
what they need?
Great question. So the question was about my comment about really getting to what they need, not necessarily what they ask for. And there's several ways to do it in a way. And really, I think the most important thing is first, is to make sure you really know your client and what their problems are, what the real problems are. And there's several ways we do this sometimes. Many times it's in a workshop setting. So we'll sit down with a client and we'll set up a series of workshops to talk about the issues to get to the bottom of what some of those root cause drivers are. Because many times, even in cases where a client will put out an RFP, you don't understand what the driver for that was. And sometimes it's a political driver. Sometimes it's an environmental driver. Sometimes it's a technology driver. You can't get that many times from an RFP. You can't get that just from somebody saying, this is what I need. And you have to spend some time with them kind of unfolding the background and getting an appreciation for what those drivers are. So an example might be a workshop with the client where you sit down and you start peeling back and asking why, and ask again why, and you keep peeling back the layers till you get to the true nexus of what the driver of the issue is. You're welcome. Other questions? Thinking pizza. Yeah.
So I noticed a great parallel between the professional project scheme and then the EWB process. And the title of the talk being, I don't remember exactly, but bridging kind of profession and passion.
Right.
Besides kind of having, getting to go once you start working, maybe take off a week and go do that EWB project. Unless you're working within the international development sector, do you have any recommendations or kind of just like if you're going to say a sentence about the title and how you would follow through with that?
Yeah, the connection, the passion and professional. Well, one, if you really have a passion for that kind of work, and it's not enough for you just to go 1 week a year and do it, you've got to find other outlets. For me, that's been doing some other local things in addition to the weekly ones. So, as an example, I sit on a couple other boards and involved in the organizations. One is the Derek Jeter Turn 2 Foundation, which is about getting inner city kids to turn away from drugs and alcohol and turn towards education and positive outcomes. And that's one I can do, working locally and work that into my work life. Another one is an organization called Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship, and it's about getting kids, usually inner city kids, thinking about entrepreneurial ways to start businesses at a very young age, middle and high schools, because it engages kids in a way that sometimes education doesn't. And again, you can get involved with organizations like that, even EWB and what EWB is doing now with the Service Corps, which we'll probably hear about this weekend, and other ways to give back that are different than having to go and be gone for a couple weeks. And I would also say, find an organization, a company, that supports that kind of thinking and supports those grassroots kind of efforts. One of the things we do at AECOM is we support any individual that has a grassroots desire to go and do something good. We'll support that. And because it's those things again that make people feel like part of a community, get people excited to be there. It builds those relationships across the company that sometimes you don't get otherwise. So, hope that answered it. Sure.
You mentioned corporate social responsibility. Can you talk about some projects you're doing in that space that are exciting to you and why?
Sure. The question was corporate social responsibility, what are some of the projects we're doing in that space and why? I mentioned a few of the organizations we're working with. Another one, which I'm very excited about, it's an interesting project with the Maasai Wilderness Conservation Trust. This is a community of Maasai in Kenya. We had a long-term relationship with them, and now we're actually partnering with EWB as well, so it's a real interesting project. This one's really special because it's they're a very, very special community. They still live they're trying very hard to maintain their nomadic and pastoral way of life. They don't want electricity and TVs and cell phones. They want to be able to live the way they've lived for thousands of years and maintain their cultural integrity. But they've got severe water challenges. They've got challenges with local farming. They've got challenges with the impacts of wildlife on their they raise cows, small number of cows, but the wildlife impacts with the cows and then what you do when you have a lion that takes a cow. So they've got all kinds of issues like that they're dealing with. And we're working with them on addressing those. And if they don't, if they have to go outside for their water, if they can't stay in the lands that they're in now, if they have to start turning over their pastoral land to external farmers to make enough money to live, they have to give up the way of life that they've had for thousands of years. So that's a project that I'm very excited about. And again, I love the crossover between the relationship we've had with them for a long time, the technical expertise that we can bring to them to help solve some of those problems, and of course the tie-in with EWB. It's one good example. Other questions? Okay, great. Thanks very much. Appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of the conference.